Hello, and welcome to the Eat Well, Live Well presentation with the New Vision Family Health team. This is presented by one of our registered dietitians on staff. We're so happy that you could join us today to learn a little bit more about healthy eating to support chronic disease management. Today, we'll be talking a little bit about how nutrition and lifestyle affect our chronic disease risks. Prevention, we'll talk a little bit about certain states like blood pressure, prediabetes, and diabetes, and how we can use lifestyle measures to support ourselves in reducing our risk of certain health conditions. We'll talk a little bit about healthy eating tips, physical activity, and goal setting, and other services that you can engage in with the family health team to support your health. To begin, we want to talk a little bit about how food is absolutely medicine for our body. We know that engaging in healthy eating patterns can support a reduction in our blood sugar parameter called our A1C by 1 to 2%. That's as much as 2 diabetes medications. It can improve certain blood pressure indicators as much as 1 blood pressure medication. And it can also improve our LDL, or what we call our lousy cholesterol, by 20 to 30%, which is as much as a low dose statin medication. It can also improve other cholesterol indicators like our HDL, or otherwise known as our healthy cholesterol level, by 10 to 15%, which again is as much as a medication, and our triglyceride levels, also known as TG levels for short, by 20 to 30%. When we're looking at certain blood pressure targets, often your doctor or your hypertension nurse will look at your blood pressure compared to certain targets that are beneficial to reach. If you're living with diabetes, ideally, it's best to have a blood pressure reading close to 130/80. Gold standard is usually close to 120/70 if possible. It is helpful that if you're taking readings at home and noticing higher levels, to seek support from your hypertension nurse or your doctor today if you've noticed high levels. We do know as well, when we're looking at certain lifestyle parameters, in particular healthy eating, that eating a diet that is rich in fruits and vegetables, rich in certain items like whole grains, moderate milk product intake, and including protein sources that are plant-based like beans, nuts, or seeds, and fats that are beneficial to our health can be really helpful in lowering our blood pressure as well. Stay tuned as we talk a little bit more about some helpful nutrition tips that can support chronic disease, including blood pressure. We want to talk a little bit about what our A1C is. A1C is a short form for something that we call hemoglobin A1C. It means glycated hemoglobin, and it's a reading that shows us how much sugar is attached to the outside of our red blood cells in our body. The more sugar in your blood that's circulating, the more sugar will attach to the outside of those red blood cells. We want the sugar to get inside the cell where it can give our body the energy it needs. Red blood cells typically live for about 3 months, and that 3-month A1C average gives us a picture of how high your blood sugars have been over that time period. Ideal goal is less than 6%. So it is helpful to stay on top of knowing what your percentage is and asking your doctor what that is when you've had blood work done recently. Our goal is to always try to reduce that A1C by 0.2% by your next blood work if you are embarking on lifestyle changes. It's helpful to talk about what is prediabetes versus diabetes. Prediabetes occurs when blood sugar levels are higher than normal, but they're not high enough to be classified as a diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. We do know, however, that type 2 diabetes is a progressive condition. So it is really helpful to stay on top of what readings are throughout your life to see if there are any indicators or yellow or red flags showing us that you may possibly be progressing towards type 2 diabetes. Research shows us that you can reduce the risk of developing diabetes or delay the onset by making lifestyle changes. Also helpful if you're looking at losing a percentage of your body weight, it can also reduce your risk of diabetes. What are the risk factors for type 2 diabetes? Typically, if people have an age greater than 40 years, they may have a relative with diabetes. So that could be a grandparent or a parent or a brother or a sister. They may be of a certain ethnicity. They may have a previous history of gestational diabetes. They may carry more abdominal fat in their central region, and they may have higher blood fats or cholesterol or even high blood pressure. It's helpful to connect with your doctor about your readings after you've had blood work completed. We do know that normal readings for different parameters, such as fasting blood sugars 2 hours after you've had food or a meal, and then your A1C sit in a certain range. Normal fasting blood sugar is typically between 4 to 6. 2 hours after a meal, the goal would be less than 7.8. If we're looking at A1C, ideal A1C is less than 5.5%. At risk would be between 5.5 to 5.9%, and less than 6% is really what we're looking for often. Pre-diabetes, if someone's blood sugars are a little bit higher, may have fasting blood sugars between 6.1 to 6.9, 2 hour after meal readings, 7.8 to 11, and that A1C may be creeping up a little bit between the range of 6.0 to 6.4%. Diabetes, often we see higher fasting blood sugars at about 7. We may see higher 2 hour after meal blood sugars at about 11.1, and that A1C again may be higher than 6.5%. Often your doctor will test a few of these indicators and sometimes do a repeat test before confirming a diagnosis of diabetes or prediabetes. So stay connected to your family doctor. If you have not had blood work done recently, connect with them and possibly see what your lab work is telling you. To look at the metabolism of sugar in the body, you can see that when we're eating something, say something like an apple that might break down into give our body some sugar in the form of glucose, food will enter the stomach. Often with the presence of glucose in the body, your pancreas will release a hormone called insulin. Insulin's job is to act like a key to open up the doors to your cells and bring that sugar inside the cell to give you the energy that you need. What we know with type 2 diabetes is that a few challenges can be happening. The pancreas in your body that produces insulin might not be making enough insulin anymore to help actually control blood sugar levels in the bloodstream. Your liver as well, which acts like a backup storage tank of sugar, might be leaking a little bit of sugar into the bloodstream and causing a rise in your blood sugar levels. We also know that sometimes body cells might be resistant to the insulin that is released. So therefore, the insulin is having a hard time bringing the sugar from the bloodstream into the cell. In all of these cases, we can see higher blood sugar levels. It's important to also be aware of what are the symptoms of a higher blood sugar. Some people can feel quite tired or fatigued, very thirsty. They might urinate more frequently, have an increased appetite. They might sense blurred vision or that certain cuts or scratches on the body are having a hard time healing. And they might even notice that they are getting more frequent urinary tract infections that might not go away. This is your body communicating to you that something is amiss. If you're noticing certain symptoms of high blood sugar, it's important to connect with your doctor. What does it mean to manage my blood sugars, or why does it really matter? High blood sugar levels we know can become toxic to different systems of the body, and specifically blood vessels associated with your heart, your eyes, your kidneys, and then can also impact the way your nerves are functioning. We can see progression of heart disease, kidney disease, nerve damage, sometimes even amputation or blindness if blood sugars have been uncontrolled for a long period of time. You can reduce the progression of any of these complications by checking in with your doctor or your diabetes team and making sure that your blood sugar control is the best that it can be. Prevention of type 2 diabetes is possible from a lifestyle standpoint. Making lifestyle changes we know absolutely can help. Improving eating habits, being more active as well throughout your weeks and your months, quitting smoking, and aiming for good blood sugar controls and staying connected to your family doctor or nurse practitioner is important. For any support, please connect with our team. We have a diabetes team on staff as well. You can see your doctor or nurse practitioner at any time to support diabetes prevention. A few healthy eating tips will help to guide you on your journey to support chronic disease reduction in your life. It's very helpful to think about heart health guidelines. We know that eating healthy fats from whole food sources is very supportive of our cholesterol levels. It can be helpful to avoid foods that have trans fats. So if you were to look at labels, aim for getting the trans fats listed at 0 grams. Eating less saturated fats, so this may be foods from animal fats, coconut or palm oils, things like Crisco. It can be helpful to, on the labels, look for a percentage daily value per serving less than 5%. Eat foods rich in healthy fats every day. So this could be things like your olive oil, nuts or seeds, avocados, avocado oil, nut butters as well, or fatty fish sources. We'll talk a bit about added sugar soon, but it can be helpful overall to try and reduce the amount of added sugar that you're eating in your eating pattern. Increasing fruits and vegetables will always be helpful. Aiming for about 7 to 10 servings per day can be a great goal. Or if we're looking at cups, 2 to 4 cups of vegetables spread across meals can be helpful as well, not just for antioxidants, special phytochemicals, but also for a boost of fiber. Choosing whole grains or versus refined grains can be helpful as well for supporting good blood sugar levels, contributing great fiber to your eating pattern. The question we get often is, what are whole foods anyway? If you think about whole foods, the easiest way to remember them is that it's food sources that have been processed or refined as little as possible. In other words, they're closest to the way nature intended them to be, often free from additives or other artificially added substances. Real food does a great job at regulating our appetite so we don't eat too much or feel too stuffed. It helps provide the best nutrition so we can remain healthy for our life. It has a long-standing relationship with our bodies, which means that our bodies know exactly what to do with it and know how to break it down appropriately. It's very helpful to ask yourself a few questions when it comes to determining if you're eating whole foods or a little bit further from a whole food. What's on the ingredient list? Do you understand the ingredients, or do you recognize everything that's listed? How many steps did this particular food take to actually get on my plate? Does this food come in a bag, a box, or a can? Trying to eat the foods that you're buying closest to nature can be very helpful to reap the benefits nutritionally. This is a neat graphic just to show you the difference in calories, how many apples you would actually need to eat in order to eat the same amount of calories that might be found in a Big Mac with fries and a large soda. When we talk about calorie density, we're talking about how much calories do we have to eat in a particular serving. And it can be helpful to use calorie density when we're comparing different foods. In this example, you can see that in order to get 100 calories for our body to use, we could either eat 8 Dorito chips or 25 medium strawberries. It's helpful to neutralize and understand that it's not saying that we can never enjoy some Dorito chips, but it is helpful just to see the difference between the volume of fresh whole foods that we could eat to get 100 calories versus the smaller volume of Dorito chips that it might take to get 100 calories. We'd like to leave you with 5 habits and handy portions to help you determine what can be helpful serving sizes to fit on your plate of a variety of different foods at meals. It's helpful when we're thinking about protein-rich foods, including beans, eggs, lean meats, fish, nuts or seeds, or low-fat dairy, and aiming for the palm size of your hand. If it's something like fish or if it's something like meat, another way to think about it would be the size of a deck of cards. Think a bit about a fist size of vegetables. Think a bit about a cupped hand of carbohydrates. So this could be cereals, pasta, rice, potatoes, or corn. Sometimes for fruits and milk, that fist size is also helpful as a reference point. And when it comes to breads, that palm size is helpful as a reference point. Eating vegetables with each meal, and again, we had mentioned 2 to 4 cups daily can be a helpful goal for vegetables. So if you're starting to just incorporate vegetables into your eating pattern, it might be adding 1 cup at your lunch, 1 cup at your dinner, and slowly increasing towards that 2 cups that might fill almost half of your plate. Eating healthy fats with meals can also be great. When we're thinking about fats, they help to keep us feeling fuller longer, and especially if they are fats that have beneficial effects on chronic disease reduction, this can also support our cholesterol levels. Types of fats that can be helpful to include in, we'll be talking about in upcoming slides. Last but not least, it's very helpful to eat slowly and think a little bit about, are you even hungry before you're eating? While you're eating, think about, are you getting full or how are you physically feeling? And stop when you're no longer hungry. This will allow the body not to get overstuffed and allow your body to digest your food the best possible way. When we're thinking about eating slowly and being mindful of our eating patterns, it's good to recognize that it takes 15 to 20 minutes for us to typically feel satisfied, or about 15 to 20 minutes for our body to communicate to our brain that we've had enough to eat. It can be helpful to practice slowing down to have better hunger and appetite awareness. Rate your hunger and fullness levels at the beginning and the end of each meal. This can be a great guiding practice to really support overall tuning into what your body's communicating back to you. Decreasing distractions one at a time at meal times can be very helpful. Setting down your phone, shutting off the iPad or the TV can help you again to tune into what your body's communicating. Enjoy your food. Focus on tastes, textures, and the smell of different foods. Some people enjoy setting a timer for about 15 to 20 minutes to allow you to slow down and making sure that you're filling up that time so you can eat slowly and enjoy your food. Taking smaller bites or counting your chews can actually be helpful as well. Setting down utensils during bites and sipping some water and talking during the meal with others that might be dining with you. When you're thinking about protein-rich foods with each meal, we know that protein can really help to, number one, balance blood sugar, but also keep us feeling fuller longer between our meals. A lot of people like to opt for plant-based proteins, and that could be enjoyed with legumes, tofu, or tempeh, or even things like nuts or seeds. If you still enjoy meat products or poultry or wild game, that's great too at a meal. Lean beef and pork occasionally in the eating pattern, and then thinking about dairy products as great sources of protein too, including milk, Greek yogurt, or cottage cheese. It is helpful to aim to eat less processed meat. So this might be limiting this to 2 to 3 times per month, a little bit less during your week. Things like bacon, high fat or high sodium salami or deli meats, hot dogs, or even sausages. In the bottom right corner, you can see that picture of that healthful plate to help us know what different portion sizes of different foods are beneficial to include at each of our meals. You can see that the protein there on that plate is taking up a quarter of it. So include the protein sources that you enjoy. If you look at the plate again, you can notice that filling half of our plate with vegetables can be helpful. This is typically referring to non-starchy vegetables, more of your leafy greens or broccoli, could be cauliflower, it could be something like peppers or snow peas or snap peas, whatever you do enjoy. We know that our vegetables are packed with fiber. They contain lots of beneficial vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals that serve very important roles in our body and also help to reduce chronic disease. So as we mentioned, aim for 1 to 2 cups at both your lunch and your supper. This could be 2 nice big handfuls filling half that plate, or 2 fists filling that plate as well. Eat carbohydrate foods. I know carbohydrates get a pretty bad rap in society these days, but they can be a very beneficial source of energy for the body. They're the body's main glucose source and primary fuel source for the brain, especially for someone that is quite physically active and is busy during their day. It can be helpful to just keep you going, improve your workout ability, and also keep you energized. Carbohydrates are also full of beneficial vitamins and minerals, and also great sources of fiber that feed your gut. When we're looking at carbohydrate foods, the goal is to always think about carbohydrates that are less processed in nature. When we talk about processed, we also might use the word refined. So this can include refined carbs like white rice, white pasta, white breads, cereals that include a bit more sugar, crackers that are more white in variety, baked goods, added sugars, or maybe enriched flours that we're baking with. We would want to try and increase the fiber content of carbohydrates so they break down slower when they're digested and they impact our blood sugar levels less. When we are choosing more whole grain sources of carbohydrates, they typically will stick around a little bit longer to give us the sustainable energy that we need. And they stick around even longer when they're combined in that balanced plate picture with different beneficial big nutrients like proteins and fats and helpful other fiber sources like our vegetables. Whole grain sources of carbohydrates might include brown or long grain rices, whole wheat pasta, 100% whole grain breads, ancient grains like quinoa, barley, bulgur, or buckwheat, beans, fruit, and lower fat milk and alternatives. It can be very helpful when we're thinking about healthy eating habits to think about eating healthy fats with most of our meals. Fats are very helpful for our bodies to absorb different vitamins, very helpful for our bodies to stay fuller longer at meals, and have really great benefits on certain cholesterol levels in our body. We know that monounsaturated fats that include types of foods or oils like avocados, olive oil, sesame oil, or even fatty fish like char, trout, salmon, mackerel, halibut, haddock, or sardines. Certain nuts and seeds and their butters like hemp seeds, chia, flaxseed, almonds, walnuts, pistachios, and cashews can have a beneficial effect on our healthy cholesterol levels. They might increase it, and a lowering effect for our lousy or our LDL cholesterol levels. Polyunsaturated fats, or more famously known as omega-3s, typically have a beneficial impact on lowering our triglyceride levels or our blood fat levels in our body, and also can boost our healthy cholesterol levels in our body. This might include certain fish, again, fatty fish, as previously mentioned, or nuts and seeds like walnuts, ground flax, sunflower seeds, or hemp seeds. Fortified foods might also include some omega-3 content, like omega-3 enriched eggs. The chickens are often fed a flax meal to support boosting the omega-3 content in the egg. Certain omega-3 enriched milks can be helpful. Yogurt, mayonnaise, and margarine are things to keep a lookout for. It's helpful to cook with healthy fats when you're doing certain cooking methods like frying or even baking. Using avocado oil when you're cooking at high temperatures can be helpful, as avocado oil has a very high smoke point. Olive oil can be helpful at low or medium temperatures, so if you're quickly stir frying, or flax oil can be also a helpful oil to use if you're using no heat. So this could be helpful to add to something like a salad dressing. What about sugar and alcohol? When we think about sugar, we always want to think about enjoying to some degree, but also being moderate about our intake overall in an eating pattern. Added sugars should be limited for children to about 5 teaspoons per day, or on a label you might see grams, so no more than about 20 grams. For women, 6 teaspoons or no more than 25 grams, and for men, 9 teaspoons or no more than 36 grams. A reminder that about 1 teaspoon of sugar is equal to about 4 grams of sugar. 1 tablespoon is equal to about 12 grams of sugar. So be mindful how much you're using, or maybe how much others are adding to certain things, especially something like coffee. Read labels and look at the sugar content on certain foods that might have an extra level of processing applied to them. These could be certain items like pop, juice cocktails, energy drinks, sugar added to your coffee, hot beverages, something like hot chocolate or even apple cider, sweets, sauces, baked goods, granola bars, cereal, yogurt, or even microwave dinners. Even natural sugars like honey, maple syrup, and molasses count towards your total intake of added sugar in a day. We know that overall higher intake of sugars beyond what's recommended can impact chronic disease risk. Specifically, can have big impacts on cholesterol levels and such as our triglyceride levels. Also can impact our blood sugar levels. So keep an eye on how much you're including on a daily basis. It's helpful to know that sometimes sugar can go by different names. When you're looking at ingredient lists, be mindful that certain names like corn syrup, cane sugar, dextrose, dextrin, fructose, glucose, high fructose corn syrup, maltose, maltodextrin, malt syrup, sucrose, and glucose fructose are all meaning the same thing, sugar. This is again a neat graphic to show you how much sugar is in some common beverages purchased on a daily basis in our society. When you're looking at something like Coca-Cola, for example, we know that there's about 15.5 teaspoons in about a 790 milliliter bottle. When you're looking at something like a Rockstar energy drink, similarly, about 15 teaspoons. What about that Arizona iced tea? Quite a high amount of teaspoons as well, still around the 12. So you can see that including this amount of sugar sweetened beverages will contribute quite a significant amount beyond recommendations of sugar in your day. You might have questions about alcohol. We know that moderate alcohol intake can actually be supportive of reducing our risk of heart disease. It can actually raise healthy cholesterol or good cholesterol, also known as HDL, some support for thinning the blood, and also some support for improving blood pressure. Often, if you do not drink, this is not an encouragement to start. Beware as well that moderation is still your friend. Alcohol is high in calories and can contribute to weight gain if not used responsibly, and can also lead to increasing triglyceride levels. The maximum intake recommended for men and women daily and weekly would be 2 to 3 drinks in a day for men, no more than 5 days per week. Women, 1 to 2 drinks per day, no more than 5 days per week. A standard drink size would be the following examples: 1.5 ounces of liquor, about 12 ounces of beer, or about 5 ounces of wine. So let's move into talking about some healthy eating steps in action. We know that having a healthy eating pattern, it's a lifestyle. It also is a lot more complex than just what the food that we eat on a daily basis. It's important to think about eating meals with family and friends. Socialization, especially in these days, is so important, as much as possible and as safe as possible. Eating smaller portions of high quality food that's minimally processed can make a big impact in your health. Focusing on fresh foods and those in season, so visiting your local markets or even roadside stands can be helpful. Cooking from scratch most often, and avoiding processed foods most often. Some cooking tips that can be helpful when it comes to reducing fats might include trimming visible fat from meat and draining fat from ground meats when you're cooking, barbecuing, roasting, or broiling versus frying. You often can control more of the amount of fats that you're adding to a certain food that you are cooking. Use plant-based oils more often, like olive oils, avocados, canola oils, instead of butter or lard. Add beans or lentils to your salads, stir fries, casseroles, and spaghetti dishes instead of having meat. So you could try at your hand at adding black, kidney, white, pinto, chickpeas, lentils to certain dishes, adding seeds or nuts to your cereals, salads, yogurt, and casseroles for a little boost of fiber and protein. Try hemp seeds, chia seeds, pumpkin seeds, or ground flax seeds for some great options. Almonds, walnuts, pecans, hazelnuts, cashews, and pistachios can also be helpful additions that will give you that boost of protein and fiber as well, and also a great taste and addition of some fats that keep you feeling fuller longer. It's always important to think about how we can add vegetables more to our meals. You might easily be able to add vegetables to things like omelets or scrambled egg dishes, casseroles, rice dishes, pasta sauces, meals on the barbecue, or even stir fries. Think about using milk instead of cream to reduce fat content in your eating pattern, or think about using half the amount of sugar and salt that a recipe might call for to reduce amounts of added sugars or even the amount of salt that you're using on a daily basis. Substituting pureed fruit or applesauce for some of the fat in baking can be helpful. So, for example, if a recipe calls for about 1 cup of butter, it can be helpful to use half of a cup of a non hydrogenated or soft margarine, or even half a cup of applesauce. Flavorings like garlic, lemon juice, and vinegar, mustard, instead of butter or salt can be helpful things to keep your food flavorful, but also to be mindful of some ways to reduce salt intake and certain amounts of saturated fat intake. We wanted to share some recipe websites with you. Cookspiration is from the Dietitians of Canada and provides you with lots of different options for an array of different topics related to cooking. Ontario.ca, this is a website specifically relating to Foodland or the grocery stores or Sobeys. Eat Right Ontario is another great option. Meatless Mondays can be helpful for some inspiration on vegan or vegetarian recipes. Oshi Glows also would be more related to vegan or vegetarian recipes. Pulse Canada is a really great website that you can access to see how can you incorporate more legumes or chickpeas, beans, or lentils into your cooking habits. And Cooking Light is also a great database for different recipes. A few tips for eating on the go. We know that eating on the go is a pretty natural part of our eating patterns. Of course, if we can cook homemade food more often, it will be more beneficial to allow us to get more whole foods in the eating pattern. But we want to be realistic about the fact that sometimes this is just very helpful when you're living a busy lifestyle. So what you can do is review nutrition information online before you go out to eat. Specifically, check the nutrition information listed for saturated or trans fat, sodium, sugar, and fiber. It can be helpful to order a salad on the side to give you a fiber boost, but also to keep you feeling fuller longer after your meals. Asking for salad dressing on the side so you can personally add as much to taste, or even just be mindful of the volume of fats that you're using. Don't forget to think a little bit about that thumbs up. That thumbs up can be a really helpful tip to help guide you as to the best serving size of fats or added fats to add at a meal. Taking half a portion home with you or sharing an entree with a friend can be a helpful way to include the right amount of food for you, but also to be able to split up a larger entree that might be served to you. Think about ordering an appetizer as your main course. Sometimes the appetizers are smaller portions that are more manageable. Again, it's a helpful reminder to think about tuning into what your body is telling you while you're eating. Sometimes an appetizer size might be just as satisfying, and you might actually not even need to consider having that main course. Choose baked, broiled, steamed, grilled, and poached options versus fried options. Making certain substitutes like tomato sauce instead of Alfredo or cream sauces can be a helpful way to reduce the intake of added fat in a day. Having a baked potato or salad instead of fries, again, can reduce certain fat intake in our day, and also a certain amount of refined carbohydrate intake. Asking for half the oil to be used in the cooking process at a restaurant can also be helpful. And considering adding fiber-rich steamed veggies versus fries can be another great way to reduce fat intake, but also to boost your fiber intake. This is a great example to show you the difference between ordering a type of meal at Swiss Chalet in particular that could be a little bit higher in calories, fat, saturated fat in particular, and trans fats. So you can see here we have the garlic cheese loaf, double leg with skin on the chicken, and French fries for a total of 1930 calories, 150 grams of total fat, 46 of that being saturated fat, and 1.9 grams being trans fat. If we look at the next example, you can see a more nutritious alternative, which could be choosing a garden salad with a vinaigrette dressing, a quarter chicken breast without the skin, and mashed potatoes instead. You can see the significant reduction in calories at 475. Total fat is now at 10 grams, and that is only 3.5 grams of saturated fat and 0.1 grams of trans fat. Looking at those menu options beforehand can help you make an informed choice before you go to the restaurant, and so you're prepared when you're ordering. Last but not least, we wanted to talk a little bit about label reading. Labels are often going to be present on any packaged food product or canned food product that you might find in a grocery store. It's very helpful to first notice what is the serving size that all of the facts on the label are referring to. You can notice the serving size often listed right under the nutrition facts title on a label. In particular, here we can see the 1 cup serving size listed. Other helpful things to note are the percentage daily values for each of the nutrients. Here you can see the percentage daily value for fat is 20%, saturated fat 25%, and fiber 0%. And then different percentage daily values for the different vitamins and minerals listed. The percentage daily value can help to guide you when it comes to if you're getting a little bit or a lot of a particular nutrient. A percentage daily value of 5% or less is telling us that we're getting a little bit of a particular nutrient listed here on this label. If the percentage daily value is greater than 15%, we know we're getting a lot of a certain nutrient listed. If we're looking at a percentage daily value that might tell us that we're making a low fat choice, you would typically see the value of 5% or less. If we're looking at a percentage daily value for saturated fat and trans fat together, it's good to think a little bit about aiming for 10% or less for these particular fats. You can notice as well that fiber is not present in this particular serving size for this food. So this would be not a good source of fiber at all. You can notice that calcium is 15%, so you're getting a pretty good amount of calcium from eating this 1 cup of this particular food. It's a good rule of thumb to think about aiming for 3 grams or more of fiber and 8 grams or less of a certain sugar listed. So paying attention to things like the fiber and the sugars can be very helpful, as well as the sodium content of a particular food, and then as well the saturated and trans fats, as we mentioned. So to summarize, for this particular 1 cup of this food, you can see that we're getting quite a bit of total fat at 20%, quite a bit of saturated fat and trans fat at 25%, low fiber, higher sodium at 28%, and then you're getting some trace vitamins and minerals at the bottom. A quick note on exercise. Exercise, especially in the midst of a pandemic, has been challenging for a lot of people to get in. It's helpful, number one, when you're approaching implementing an exercise change into your life to figure out what type of exercise that you actually enjoy. When you're considering starting with exercise, it's good to think about a small amount first and foremost, and building once you're comfortable in meeting your goal. Aim for a minimum total of 150 minutes of cardio activity. So that's activities that get that heart rate pumping per week. And this can help to reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease. This might look like 30 to 60 minutes of moderate intensity activity 5 to 7 days a week, such as power walking, dancing, bicycling, running, tennis, hiking, kayaking, or even skiing. Aiming for 20 minutes of resistance training, so that's activity that helps to use that muscle or build that lean body mass 2 to 3 days per week, can be really helpful to also improve bone health on top of muscle tone. This could include exercises like weight training, body weight exercises, Pilates, or yoga. We know that when it comes to exercise, it goes beyond supporting cardiovascular disease. We know that if we look a little bit deeper, we can see beneficial changes in blood pressure and also some beneficial changes in certain cholesterol levels, like increased HDL or healthy cholesterol and decreased LDL or lousy cholesterol. We also know that our mood can be improved. We can feel lighter. We can just feel more enjoyable days and moments throughout life. When we're looking at regulating appetite and cravings, these are also beneficial changes that we notice with an increased exercise engagement. We know the benefits of walking can be amazing and also a really great starting point for a lot of people looking to change lifestyle patterns when it comes to exercise. Walking for 30 minutes about 5 times per week can reduce coronary heart disease by 19%. We also know that certain studies have showed us that for every additional 2,600 steps of walking each day, we can see a reduction in that blood sugar parameter A1C. We can see reduced pain for people that maybe struggle with arthritis. And we also can see some beneficial changes in blood pressure and certain cholesterol levels as well. When you're embarking on lifestyle change, we know that it's really hard sometimes to do. When it comes to changing our behaviors, it's very helpful to break it up into steps. It's helpful to choose one habit that's going to support how you want to feel in your life and how you want to improve your health. Start by picking small habits to improve practice. Mastering many little habits over time will help to move you towards your bigger ultimate goals. Pick a habit that you know is going to be manageable for you to engage in, but also challenges you a little bit. When you ask yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 how confident you feel about making a change, our goal is always to try and aim for about an 8 or higher. And if it's less than an 8, we know that it might be a call to simplify that goal a little bit until we are able to confidently say, yes, I can make that change. Practice one new habit at a time until you master it. It often takes about 2 to 4 weeks until we see some consistency in implementing this change into our lifestyle. So this might mean that we're engaging in doing the habit about 85 to 90% of the time. Some people find that it's very helpful to track their success. So using a calendar, a checklist, a journal, or even sometimes a habit tracking app, even sometimes setting a reminder can be really helpful to support you in meeting your goals. Sometimes people find accountability really helpful. So talking to family and friends about the changes that they're planning on making, or joining a group of people who are mutually engaged in wanting to make the same behavior changes as you. Treating yourself with non-food rewards when you meet your goals can also sometimes be incentive to support you in mastering your habit. Something small is better than changing nothing at all. Some examples of SMART goals that we can set can include increasing my fiber intake by eating a whole fruit versus drinking juice every week at breakfast, snacking on a quarter cup of nuts on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays in the afternoon instead of having a sweet treat, eating a serving of fish 2 times a week to increase our total intake of omega-3 fats. This might include eating salmon sandwich for lunch or preparing a fish dinner 1 night per week, or even thinking about going for a 20-minute walk on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at lunch hour, and thinking about asking a colleague to go with you. We know that we want to be smart about making our goals. We want them to be specific, we want them to be measurable, we want them to be attainable or doable, and we want them to be relevant to our life or where we're motivated to change